Hello, Eastern Michigan family and friends. My name is Taquanda Johnson, and I am the social media strategist here at Eastern Michigan University. And if this is your first time logging into one of our lives, you are in for a treat today. This is our Black History Live 365. That means that we are celebrating Black History 365 days of the year here at Eastern Michigan University. And I am excited and humbled for this opportunity to have this candid conversation as we remember our colleague and our friend, Judy Sturgis Hill. So if you are at your first time watching the broadcast, you're in for a treat. Go on ahead and hit the share button if you're on Facebook, or if you're on Twitter, go on ahead and hit that retweet. And if you are on YouTube, what are you waiting for? Become a subscriber, hit the subscribe button, as well as share this broadcast with your family and your friends. We know that we also have some of Judy's family and friends watching today. So we just want to say thank you so much for sharing her with us as we get ready to remember the life and legacy of our good and amazing friend and colleague, Judy Sturgis Hill. Now, as we get started, everybody knows that I do a nice little disclaimer. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns that are not according to the topic today, please by all means hold those questions, drop them in our inbox, or send us an email at social_media@umich.edu, and we will be prepared to answer those accordingly. But if you have any memories or any thing that you would like to share about your time with Judy, by all means, drop them in the comment box. We want to be able to recognize those and share in the legacy and the life of our good friend and colleague, Judy Sturgis Hill. So let me tell you a little bit about Judy. She is an emeritus professor. She was emeritus professor of communications, media, and theater arts, and she passed away in January of 2019. She had a lengthy and distinguished history here at Eastern Michigan University, not just as a student, a staff member, and also a faculty member. Professor Judy served in many roles on campus. She was also, like I mentioned, a student. She was a member of the National Championship Forensics team, a student activist on campus during civil rights struggles, a resident hall advisor, a graduate assistant, a part-time lecturer, a recipient of the King Chavez Parks Fellowship, a faculty member, a faculty in residence, meaning that she lived in the first year residence center for many years to support our students in their transition to college life. She was also the director of diversity programs, the interim director of the Office of Affirmative Action, and the co-chair of the Martin Luther King Planning Committee from its inception, and co-chair of the Summer Institute of Arts and Sciences. Judy also was EMU's first national, let me say that again, the first national forensics champion and a recipient of the Alumni Teaching Excellence Award. She's a chosen faculty member to present the last lecture series and a recipient of the Eastern's Martin Luther King Jr. Humanitarian Award. She's left a tremendous mark on the lives of students, faculty, and staff, and her legacy lives on within our hearts. Most recently, the renaming of our Cork building has now been named the Judy Sturgis Hill Building as of December of 2020. So today's panel, we will have an opportunity to talk with some really amazing people, some folks who were very, very close to her. So first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Doris Fields, Assistant Vice President of Academic Programs and Initiatives, Division of Academic and Student Affairs. She's a professor in Communications, School of Communications, Media, and Theater Arts, and she recently received the title of our interim chief D&I officer. She can kind of, I know I probably jacked that up. I'm sorry, Dr. D, but welcome, Dr. Doris.
Thank you, Taquanda. Thank you so much. And it is interim Chief Diversity Officer.
Come on. See, I knew you would get me right. I knew you would get me right.
Thank you so much.
I was so humbled when, when that happened. And that's literally what, it's been a week now. So we are excited to have you. I can't name anybody more fitting to be in that position. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to get on the ground and do some things and be able to make sure that we address DEI across campus. So I'm very excited. Thank you.
No problem. Next, we have Kathy Stacy. She's the interim assistant vice president of academic human resources. Welcome, Kathy.
Hi, Taquanda. How are you?
Hey, Kathy. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited about having you in this amazing conversation as we remember Judy.
My pleasure. And I know Judy is smiling that Doris is in that new role. If there's one thing I'm most happy for Dr. Fields, it is definitely Judy Sturgis Hill. So I'm
absolutely. Next, we have Ray Quill. He's Emeritus Director of Forensics, Assistant Professor of Communications, the school within the School of Media and Theater Arts. Welcome, Ray. Hi, Ray.
Well, hello.
We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you for this invitation. And I'd like to thank everyone who's tuning in to join in this celebration of the legend that is Judy Sturgis Hill. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And last but not least, we have my good friend and EMU two-time alum who can speak to the amazing things and amazing impact that Judy had within each and every one of our lives. Keith Jason, he is the coordinator of new student programming at the University of Michigan Comprehensive Studies program. As I mentioned, he's a two-time alum who's received his Bachelor of Arts in Business and Marketing and his Master's in Educational Leadership, focusing on higher ed and student affairs. What up, though, Keith? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I don't know if, can I call you TQ in this setting?
Yes, you can.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, TQ, and as a part of this conversation. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say, and really looking forward to the opportunity to share about some of the experiences we've had with Judy over the years.
Yes, so I am really excited about getting into this conversation, and if you're watching right now, you probably can see my eyes a little swollen up because I'm looking at the comments of of everybody and what everyone is saying. So again, I do want to thank the family. I know that that Vince is here, so thank you so much, Vince. He's watching through YouTube. We most definitely miss her a lot. Also, we have Melanie Bond over on YouTube. She was such a loving person and gave big hugs. She did. She did. And I'm honored to work in the building named after her. So we're going to get right into the conversation and talk a little bit about Judy. And I want to shoot this question over to Kathy. Kathy, recently we renamed Quirk, after Judy. Let's talk a little bit about the emphasis and the impact that she made within the communications department and why it was so fitting, especially now we're in Black History Month, as far as naming this building after her versus anybody else, who could have received it. Why Judy?
Yeah, well, first off, I was honored to be co-chair of the committee of which Doris was a member, to rename the building. And when we were thinking about the criteria of what would we use to rename the building, we put a call out across campus as well as to CMTA alums. And the criteria we based it on was somebody who represented the values of EMU, represented the values of CMTA, and had some affiliation with CMTA in some way, because most of our building is people who, everything in our building is CMTA. And one of the names that appeared over and over and over again was Judy Sturgis Hill. And if you had to think who embraces what I grew up, I mean, I had the privilege, and I always do this because Judy Sturgis Hill always did this, so it's hard not to talk about Judy without putting your hand over your heart, because that was such a Judy. But when we talk about trying to embrace that CMTA is about diversity. It's about humanity. It's about celebrating people's stories. It's letting people find their voice. Everything that we are is everything that Judy Sturgis Hill always stood for. So it with her name coming up over and over again, it just seemed to fit every category. Check, check, check. Judy Sturgis Hill is what CMTA is all about. So that's really how Judy rose to the top. And I don't know anybody who is associated with the building who has expressed any displeasure, because everybody loves Judy. And it really is, when you walk in the building, you feel the humanity of Judy Sturgis Hill. It's just cool.
I absolutely agree with that. I remember when it was going around, and we were in, Keith can attest to this, like we're in a lot of alumni groups, and when they talked about just, changing the name, like everybody was just like, Judy, 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 and these are folks who legit like don't stay in Ypsilanti anymore, like, are connected to Eastern and still have that love, and they still were screaming her praises and her name concerning that. So Keith, you want to hit on a little bit about that too? Like just your experience as far as that was concerned? I think that I was overwhelmed by watching like everyone just be so excited about the name change.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience to see everybody's joy that poured out after the announcement that this is what was going to happen. First and foremost, it's hard to believe that still, even to this day, 3 years later, that she's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Right.
And so to have the opportunity to walk by, we talk about the artist formerly known as Prince, the building formerly known as Quirk, now known as Judy Sturgis Hill Building, and just be reminded on a daily basis or anytime I visit campus, seeing that is a feeling that inspires so much pride and a feeling that inspires just so much joy over the fact that the decision makers, the powers that be at Eastern Michigan University saw the value not only in who Judy was, but in the impact that she left on so many of us throughout the university community. And anytime that I'm in a Zoom meeting where I can change my background with people at Eastern Michigan University, when I was home for homecoming, I took a really nice picture of the building that kind of has the sun peeking through the clouds, almost like she was shining down on us, smiling down on us. And I use that as my background for any conversation that I have to have about Judy Sturgis, or excuse me, about Eastern Michigan University. And it's just a great reminder, and it's been something that I've loved to carry forward with me.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I need to see that photo, Keith, because I can imagine, like, I'm just sitting here like, oh, I can imagine exactly what it looks like. So make sure you share that one.
I'll be sure I get it to you.
I love it. Doris, Ray, do you have anything that you would like to share in regards to just the renaming of the building?
I just think it was appropriate at the time. And I think Kathy nailed it when she said our values. And I think everything that Judy represented our values in that building of who we are and who we are as a community, who we are as a faculty and staff in that building. She just represented everything. So it's so fitting. And I remember, Keith, I did the same thing. I made my husband take all these fantastic pictures of me in front of this. In front of the sign, because I was blown away, and I cried a lot. This was a moment because she was so precious to so many people in the EMU community that having a building named after her was just right. That's why I think there was so much joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
And I think that precious quality extends, as you know, well beyond Eastern Michigan University. In the forensics community, the competitive public speaking and debate, and the performance of literature community, people celebrate the legacy that is Judy Sturgis Hill. The last time we were able to meet at a national tournament face-to-face was 2 years ago in Santa Ana, California. And I had the honor and privilege of honoring Judy at the closing ceremony. And it was so heartwarming to see thousands of people who were there live, and then tens of thousands of people who were watching the video stream, honoring Judy Sturgis's legacy. You know, she was the very first African-American to win a national championship. She was the first from EMU to win a national championship and the first in the nation. And she's a charter member of the Forensics Hall of Fame, the National Forensics Association's Hall of Fame. Judy Sturgis, in that activity, and then by extension at Eastern, she's foundational. She's infrastructural.
Yeah.
Definitional. And she's become this legacy because of the excellent standards she set as a competitor, a coach, and a teacher. And then the legacy becomes the motivation for the current students, because you're just trying to live up to the standards Judy set 40, 50 years ago, 1971, 1972, 1973. And it's more than just competitive success. This is important to me. Judy's greatest contribution were the everyday small acts of humanity she engaged in. She taught us all to root for the other team because we wanted to see excellent performances and then beat them. I mean, that's what she was all about, you know, she elevated all of us. Yes. You know, I first saw Judy when I was a student in high school in a segregated community called Taylor, Michigan. Yeah. And she came into our choir room with Tony Vihar and Gary Ketchum and Sue Fisher and Jerry Bloom. Dennis Began, Regent Began, was then director of forensics, and he used to take tours to local high schools to recruit. And Judy stood in front of me when I'm this kind of cynical high school senior who thinks he knows it all, giving a speech about heroin babies. My first reaction is, heroin babies? I don't know any heroin babies. And 10 minutes later, she had me on the verge of tears by combining a good, solid argument and analysis with some poetry from Maya Angelou. She moved our minds, she moved our hearts, and every forensics team since those early 1970s teams honors Judy by trying to live up to her standards of excellence and, more importantly, the standards of humanity, those small acts of kindness, those giving hugs. And so I'll tell you what, she's such a wonderful woman. I don't know how we get sainthood, but a building might not be enough.
I agree with you, Ray. As you're saying that, I'm holding back my tears, but she was the best of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she brought out the best of us. The other thing she was so wonderful about is nudging people toward knowledge.
Oh, that's good. Yes.
Just give you a little push. She'd say, Ray, you know about Tulsa, right? And I'd go, you know, she goes, well, read about Rosebush, Florida. Or she said, you know who Fannie Lou Hammer is, don't you? And I go, and she goes, well, read up on that. You know, it was never overbearing or in your face, but it was always education through kindness. And what a wonderful, wonderful legacy.
So. Absolutely. I love some of the comments that are coming in. Nautica said, I love that. Like, she is foundational, you know, and that speaks, you know, volumes. We even have like one of her best friends, Linda Dean, on, and she said we were best friends forever, beginning freshman year in Jones Hall. Like, Jones is closed now. You know, so that is, we miss her too. And colleague Michelle Owens is on. She said, you know, thank you to all of our favorite people. She was like, I'm celebrating someone we love with all of our hearts. Greg Rizzolo is on. He said, cried tears of joy when I heard the new name of the building, a true legend. And our very own EMU forensics team is on. So thank you, team, for watching and being intrigued here. And he said, Judy Sturgis Hill, our forever inspiration. We agree some more. She most definitely was a pillar, as Kamal Whitmore says. So I'm with Doris. Like, I'm trying to give my grips and
I know. I said I was like, no crying. And so I'm trying to stop, but
I said I wasn't gonna cry. I literally told my staff, I was like, I'm not gonna cry. Yeah, I'm crying. That's just me. But Keith, let's talk a little bit about the impact that she had on you. and not just as a student, but in your overall life in general. Like, you got two boys, and what, your oldest just turned, what, 13 or something? 13,
Lord
14,
help
something
us.
like
Yes.
that.
Yes. 13 and very soon to be 12.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit, about that, about the impact that she made upon your life, and if you don't mind sharing your story.
Sure, I would be happy to. I want to start off by saying that I could be wrong, but I might be the only person who on this panel who was a student um, around the time when Judy was a teacher.
Me and you,
And
me and
okay,
you
well,
both.
yes, you so
Yeah,
you too, but you're
yeah,
moderating.
I
So
know, but still,
so what I
I had
wanted to
it too.
share, what I wanted to do was reach out to a few other folks and just ask for some quick excerpts of things to share. So I reached out to Shatina Jones, Dr. Now Shatina Jones, who was the president of the NAACP at a time when I was at EMU. And Shatina said that she would definitely want to share that she offered guidance when you didn't even know that you needed it. She exuded authenticity, and the world desperately needs that right now. I asked Crystal, who many would know as Crystal McMillan, now Chris Campbell. She was the same all the time at Kroger or on campus, supportive, gentle, and authentic, no matter the space or the audience. And all of those things ring true from my experience with her. I'll share a story that goes like this. In 2004, the university made a decision to take pieces of the Dean of Students office and put them in different places within the university.
Yeah.
The Dean of Students became the ombuds. And then offices that formerly reported to the Dean of Students office reported to Judy as a director of diversity at the time. I was serving in a role with the Center for Multicultural Affairs. And during one of our one-on-one meetings, as meetings oftentimes had a tendency to do with Judy, they ventured off of the agenda and onto things that were going on in our personal lives. And we began to have a conversation about some of our favorite songs that we shared from our experience in our faith communities. And one of her favorite songs was In the Garden. And the last line of the refrain from In the Garden says, "And the joy we shared as we tarry there, none other has ever known."
Yeah.
And to me, that encompasses who Judy was. If you were in her presence, you knew you were in her presence. You did not leave feeling the same way that you felt when you came in. You were encouraged, you were inspired, you were potentially set straight in the most loving and
In the most
kind
loving
manner
way.
possible,
Yes.
to the point where you don't even realize until 15 minutes later that she cut me up a little bit.
She did. Like, I'm bleeding. I need a band-aid.
But didn't just do it in a way that left you bleeding, but also packaged you back up, got you back together, and you were a better person because of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think about when I think about Judy Sturgis Hill so often. So the life lesson for me in that was, when someone else is in your presence, make sure that they are the most important person in the room.
Good.
Because whoever was in Judy's presence was the most important person in the room. And that's something that I've tried to carry with me in every interaction that I have when I'm teaching in a classroom, when I am making decisions about how orientation is going to work, when I am working with a student who comes from a small city that no one has ever heard of before. Maybe they had a graduating class of 6 people, and now they're here at this giant institution at the University of Michigan, and they've got 600 people in their first class. How do we help that student feel like they are the most important person here at this institution? Because in a lot of ways they are. And so that's what I would carry forward with me in that. And I think she helped set that foundation for me in place, and for so many others. I mean, you could line up thousands of people who were students at the time when she was here in an educational capacity, and they would all be able to talk at great length about the impact that they've had. So it's an honor to be here to do that. And I'll be quiet and let some other folks share.
No, don't be quiet. We love those stories.
We're like,
Right. No, please don't. Like, please
You
don't.
signpost so well the courage that Judy had, because it takes courage to care. It takes courage to take time out of your own life and share it with others. And I think all of us on this panel and the hundreds and hundreds of people who are watching can remember just looking into Judy's eyes and how they just take you in. And, she's like living proof for me, even now, that auras exist, that there's this energy or an aura that we all give off. And it's kind of contagious. And then you realize, as Keith just kind of suggested, she changes you and you didn't even know she was changing you.
Right.
Until
after the fact. That's right.
Well, after the fact.
those hugs.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how to describe them. And I don't even have the words, but it was like when she hugged you, if you had something going on and maybe you didn't even tell her and you had something going on and she would hug you, it was just like, it was such an embrace. And then you would walk away and just feel better. So what Ray said is absolutely true. And I would go, whoa. And it wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna hug you. She was like, baby, come here.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I got you. You're gonna be okay. And then you walk away. And it was that hug just put you in different places.
And if you ever tried to walk across campus with Judy, you better not be in a hurry, because you were with a celebrity. Every time people would run from, I don't know where they'd even come from, and do just what Doris said. They just needed a hug to make it through the day. So it would take a walk that would take me maybe 10 minutes. If I was with Judy Sturgis Hill, it's a good half hour, because there was just too many people to stop, to hug, to talk to validate, to the word, Ray, that Judy would use is karma, that she would give off positive karma. And she goes, and if people were giving off negative karma, her line was like, Kathy, don't worry about it. It will come back to them. So just keep stroking, do the positive karma, and give hugs. But it was a celebrity being with Judy Sturgis Hill.
Absolutely. And, being a national champion in forensics, she was a master at delivery.
Yeah.
Now Judy, in normal Judy, not presenting fashion, spoke very fast. Judy spoke very, very fast, but she had this way of, like, when she slowed down, you knew it was very serious and you had to listen. And she almost oftentimes would get quiet and slow down, and you're like, Judy, there's nobody else here. Why are you getting quiet? But she knew how to drive a point home and get you the information that you needed to get. And I miss that. I really, really do miss that. The last time that I remember speaking with her was when she attended a basketball game at Eastern Michigan University that I was announcing. And in very typical Judy fashion, she came down after the game and said, she motioned me, come here. And I listened to her, and she offered some advice, and she was spot on about different things that I could think about when I'm announcing a basketball game. And I've carried those things with me forward ever since. So
I love it. I absolutely love it. Just want to make sure that we're acknowledging some of these comments that we're getting. Kamal says, we're entertaining angels unaware, and that is so relevant as far as talking about Judy. Like, legit, she was an angel, and that her Ebony says she calls her Auntie Judy, and she was like, Auntie Judy gave the most life-changing hugs. We have some others that say, her hugs were on another level. Yeah. Her brother said, Judy hug. And that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. And then also I want to, go back to her, like, her time as a resident advisor. There's some folks that wanted to most definitely speak to that. I know Chris, we spoke about Chris earlier. Chris said that she lives in Phelps when she was there. Who else would do that? Like, that is so, that shows, like, the commitment and, and the dedication to to what Eastern honestly is all about, right? Just the overall success of our students. And Carol shared that Judy was an RA in Jones Hall. You know, when she was there, she was always a dynamo. Were any of you around during that time that she was a resident hall? Well, she was over in the residence hall, and can speak to that a little bit more. Doris, I see you shook your head.
Just a little bit. I know it was her dedication and love to the students, and that being around students gave her life.
Yeah.
It put her in a position where she could do everything she loved and then be right there and have an immediate impact on the students in the dorm. She loved that experience. And who would do that? I get that's because of her dedication.
Right.
So
and a shout out to her amazing husband, Kurt, because
yes,
thank you, Kurt.
Right, because that's a sacrifice in itself, right? For your husband to be like, oh, so we're about to stay on the campus with all these college kids, like that. Yeah, kudos to Kurt. We know that you're watching, so thank you so much for sharing her with us. We really, really appreciate that. Can't speak no more of that. Rosalind says, you know, Judy helped me raise my children. Ooh, she said, Auntie Judy helped me when I was one of the administrators in Minority Affairs. Judy was a senior my first year.
And I will agree with that she helped me raise my children. And there were times as a parent where I was trying to work, get my degree, and I was stressed one time. And I never forget what Judy told me. I was like, oh, and my daughter's going to kill me. I was like, oh, Victoria is just stressing me out. And she said, baby, they only come through you. And it changed everything for me, because the things that I want in life are not her destiny. And I had to remember that as a parent, that my job is to guide them. And she was consistently giving me advice and suggestions, and just made me a better person and made me a better parent. She made me a better human being. And I'm just blessed that I was able to have her as my friend. She was a blessing to me. And I think Kathy is right. I am where I am today because of her influence on me. She kept me grounded, and she made sure that I was loved. And so she has been a blessing to my life.
And she also empowered you, Doris. She did that to people. She let them believe in themselves to meet their goals. She made people realize not only to value others, but to truly value who they were, and that they deserved all the good and the success. And that's what I remember about Judy, just always being in your corner, Doris, to become you.
Yes, every minute. And I laugh. We work all day. We were office mates for 20 something years. And then we would come home and still talk on the phone. I know we used to drive Kurt crazy, but so I appreciate Kurt sharing her not only with me, but with the EMU community.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up today's conversation, what's one thing, and I want everybody to go around and share this, one thing that you want the EMU community to know about you? And we'll start off with Ray.
So Judy used to stand in a bus, a university, and then later charter buses, as the forensics team would go to nationals. And she would lead that team. We often engaged in song as a vocal warm-up to get the apparatus of public speaking all smoothed out. And she would lead us in a song called The Eastern Label. And she would also every year provide us with these lapel pins. I don't know how I get it on camera. The EMU lapel pins, you guys know the ones I'm talking about. And she would pin every member of every team before they left for nationals for like a 20-year period of time. And then she would get on that bus and she would lead the team in a song called Eastern Label. We borrowed it from Look for the Union Label. So it's Look for the Eastern Label. And the joy that was on her face as she was surrounded by singing voices, engaged in a commitment to making the world a better place, which is what she inspired us to do through the activity of forensics. That is one of my most vibrant memories and inspirational moments of my life, is when Judy Sturgis Hill says, look for the Eastern label. And for me, just like that building is now labeled, my experience at Eastern Michigan, which started in 1973 and continues on even through today, is labeled by Judy Sturgis Hill. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of my thoughts and memories, and to join the choir that is singing the celebrations of Judy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ray. Kathy?
Two things. One is, and one is, it's an expression that Judy used all the time. So I'll challenge people with her expression. And it was, don't let any person, place, or process steal your joy. That was what she would say at all times. And the second thing she would always say when I would go someplace and she'd be, are you going by the water, Kathy? And sometimes I was going to an ocean or a lake. She said, can you do me a favor? So I'm throwing this challenge out to everybody. She'd say, can you just say my name? I just want myself to just travel along the waters. So to this day, if I go by a body of water, I will stand there and just say Judy Sturgis Hill, because she is eternal. She really is. It is a life force that deserves to float over the waters.
Good. Thank you, Kathy. Keith? KP?
So in the mid 2000, somewhere around 2006, 2007, I had the opportunity to do a show with Judy Sturgis Hill. So shout out to Victor Walker, who put together a show of Langston Hughes poems that was called Montage. And the entire show was a recitation of Langston Hughes's work to make one story. And I will never forget Judy Sturgis Hill's reading of Mother to Son. So I would just like to leave folks with the words from that poem, which I will do no justice to the job that Judy did in reading that poem. But it says, well, son, I tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor bare. But all the time, I've been a climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps because you finds it kind of hard. Don't you fall now. For I'm still going, honey. I'm still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair.
Thank you, Keith. Doris? Dr. D?
I will talk about one thing that all her students, so it should blow up after this, all her students know. Judy brought candy bags to every single class that she had every day, all semester. She would get in class and she said, sometimes they need to pick me up. And then she looked at me one day and she said, and sometimes they have food insecurities. So this little snack that I'm bringing is helping somebody who may not have had that and may not say that they have food insecurities. And so doing that, and she did that for years, all the years that I can remember. She would roll her bag. And I was like, Judy, what's that? She said, girl, my candy for my baby. And the kids so appreciated it. And I think every student that was in her class automatically felt loved, because that's the type of person she was. So it's the candy bags. And I don't want to forget that, because she did it for two reasons, but it was a behind the scenes reasons why she did it. And she was looking out for as many people as she could.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, thank each and every one of you for joining us today for our Remembering Judy Sturgis Hill. I had a feeling that I couldn't get through this bad boy without crying. And Keith took me clean out within the garden. And I was gone after that. But thank you so much for sharing just your memories as we remember our very own. There's so many comments. I wish that I could read them all, from times where individuals were residence halls when she was a resident hall advisor, and even one of the students that said, wouldn't think of watching without wearing her label. And that was just, so important. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to the Sturgis Hill family who's watching right now. Thank you for sharing Judy with all of us. Again, we loved her. We still love her. And her legacy does live on each and every day at Eastern Michigan University. So thank each and every one of you for joining us. And make sure that you can't even get through my announcements, but make sure that you continue to join us. Black History Month has not ended. We have a list of programs that are taking place all around campus, virtual as well as in person. So head on over to emich.edu/black-history-month to learn a little bit more about those. Or you can just go to emich.edu, scroll a little down, you'll see the Black History link. So go ahead and click there. And you can join us back again for our live 365 on Monday with Professor Victor Okafor. So we're going to talk a little bit about with him as well. So again, thank each and every one of you for joining us as we honored, as we call her, Auntie Judy. That's how the students call her. And have a blessed and prosperous day. Bye, everyone.